Good evening, everybody. Welcome back then to another LFM stream here for round number 5 of the Case King Pro Series here in Season 15. What an incredible championship it has already been so far, and last week was the perfect example of just all sorts of chaos and drama that we've experienced over the course of this championship so far, both on the track and in the comms box. Now, unfortunately for those that were following along with the stream, you wouldn't have been able to see the end of that race because we had a little bit of internet shenanigans, not for the first time, sadly, over the last 3 weeks. But the end portion of that race did get recorded and uploaded to the YouTube channel, which hopefully some of you guys have been able to catch up with and see exactly how it ended. But for those that did not see the conclusion and climax from that duel between Michael Moning and George Boothby in the closing stages of the race, the grand reveal was that Michael Moning, to the line after an incredible battle fending off the winningest driver in Case King Pro Series history, took victory at the Hungaroring. He became the first man in round number 3 to take a podium from North America, and then he took pole position last week and even converted that into a win. The man is on fire at the moment. He was delighted after his race win, rightfully so. A lot of support for Michael in the chat quite often when we go racing, and everybody absolutely adored the end results of that race. It was a fantastic display of courage, consistency, and just pure performance, and it came together wonderfully. This time, we are going to the Nürburgring. A very different circuit, a very technical and tricky one. And whilst the Mustangs last week, they definitely were on the favourable side of the BOP, this week, who knows? They could be in a good place once again. We kind of got some inklings that, for example, that final chicane might be in favour of this car. It's quite comfortable through there. But there are so many different elements about this circuit which could lend itself to other cars. So we will have to wait, find out, and see how our drivers are going to get on. Now, I did touch upon the shenanigans that we have had over the course of this championship, and this evening is no different. I was all set up, ready to go, give or take in one form or another, to look through the stream on a different PC, then had a whole licensing issue, everything kind of broke and exploded, had to rush back here, and now we just have to hope and pray that the internet survives over the course of this evening. We've already had one minor calamity with an overlay that wasn't loading, but for now, we seem to be sort of more or less underway and okay again, so fingers crossed we'll make it through tonight. We will try our best anyway. We'll see how we get on, and hopefully we can have a fantastic evening of action. I'm sure these guys on the track are going to be delivering in bucket loads, as they always do, so as long as everything holds up at this end of things, I think we are going to be in for a treat. Hello and welcome to all of those joining in the chat, and also a big thank you to those who have followed the channel. We did hit that 3,800 follower milestone last week, even with all the shenanigans we ran into, and that 4,000 follower checkpoint is ever closing in, which is just absolutely extraordinary. So thank you very so much for all of you guys joining in, and I think we are able, more or less, to now head on into the server and see exactly how our drivers are getting on. Qualifying has just got underway, so they've just finished that final few moments of practice where they can get themselves dialed in, test out their setups, and then start to get themselves ready to try to push everything to the absolute limit in this qualifying session, trying to get that best position possible for the start of the race. And sometimes it can be so much more crucial on qualifying than on other days, all very much depending upon how it all falls, particularly lap 1, turn 1. And Nürburgring definitely has had its fair share of shenanigans over the course of the Pro Series, because, as we see, it's a very, very wide entry, closes up on the exit, very tight corner, and it invites a lot of overtaking opportunities. Remember, I think it was either last season or the season before, Maciej Malinowski, super aggressive, heading in towards the first turn, managing to take 2 positions to get into the race lead, but it comes at the cost of a lot of risk, and sometimes it does indeed go wrong. So, you've got to be careful, got to manage it in the opening stage of the race. But as far as qualifying goes, it is all about trying to get this incredible, legendary circuit under your belt, grasp it, and get that GT3 car around as quick as possible. Fantastic variety, of course, of manufacturers once again, including Mr. Carpet in the Bentley, the beloved Boatley, once again joining us, and it'll be very interesting to see how he gets on. And Haunted, look, I did genuinely, it wasn't on purpose, he was the first car that the overlay latched onto, and I've had too many shenanigans to even bother trying to pick another one by the time we got into practice. I do love my Boatley, but Team of Carpenter taking to the first bit on the camera once again. Now, this car has performed very well so far this season. Been great to see it back in a competitive nature. And I think that it could be pretty good again. There's a lot of, high-sided curves around this circuit where this car should be able to absorb those bumps pretty nicely. The chicane, of course, being very much one of those areas. It's very agile, so it should do fairly well in some of the twisty stuff. But as Team of Carmen goes for a little bit of grass cutting on the exit of the chicane, sometimes that rear end is maybe a little bit too loose for its own good, and some of those slow speed traction zones might be tricky. Team of Carpenter on his first bid, though, goes 400 of a second behind George Boothby, who'll be looking to go one better than he did last time out. Nicholas Huben sets an identical time to George Boothby as everyone's starting to complete their first laps. And I also did see a certain name mentioned in this, so we'll see if I can track him down in just a moment or so. But I do need to give some attention to this man, the man that did take the race win last week in extremely epic style, and the beautifully liveried car of the SE Racing Esports team, the Samantha Tan Racing Esports team, that Michael Monin gave a very wonderful shout out to last time out. We do now have a livery on board that car, and we can see it in all of its glory around here today at the Nürburgring. So I have to see, can he look to make it 2 on the bounce? If the Mustang is competitive once again, which so far is looking like it's a pretty handy car around the circuit, although it's a good mix of cars at the front of the field, that, certainly, with the form he's been going in, he's got the podium, then he got the pole position, then he got the race win. Who's to say that he can't make it 2 on the bounce? Who knows? We'll have to see how he gets on as he continues on around the circuit. And just looking elsewhere in our list as well, there was another name that I saw was back in the server, and that was a Mr. Jardier. We didn't have him last time out when we were at the Hungary, but he is back. Of course, a driver that has competed at the very top, pointy end of the grid, time and time again in the Pro Series a few seasons ago. The duel between himself and Marco Bischoff was often the case of how these championships were going. More recently, both drivers haven't quite had that same degree of pace that we saw earlier on in the Pro Series, but doesn't mean to say that they cannot compete for wins. Both drivers have taken race wins in the past couple of seasons, and Jardier in this Aston Martin, a car that I think he's starting to get more and more comfortable with, and we're seeing these glimpses of good qualifying performance from Jardier. And when he does start well in qualifying, he is certainly often able to convert it into a good race result. His race pace, his race management on the opening lap also often so good. Now, another driver that we haven't seen in a while, but is certainly no stranger to top-level ACC competition. Tobias Grunewald in the server for Remwelson Esports in the Honda, currently on that provisional pole time of 52.665, ahead of Eric Delfanta, who took the race win at the opener of the season, also in the Honda. So those cars may be looking like they could be pretty handy tonight. It's been a bit of time since round 1, where the Honda was previously a good car to have. And Tobias, upon making his return to the Pro Series, certainly hitting the front of the grid so far in style. And we will see how all of these drivers get on. 8 minutes left to go in this qualifying session, and several drivers improving as it stands. Let's see. I think George Boothby is making his way towards the final chicane now to round out this lap. He is 2/10 up on his previous best, absolutely sending it Michael Frey in the background, having a little bit of a wobble through there as well, in towards the final corner. Great run through a chicane from George Boothby. Gronewald is going immensely quickly though. Out front, Boothby will jump up towards the front row. 200ths of a second separates himself, but Timo Karppinen, the Bentley, surges up to the top, but it could be only for a brief period because Gronewald is on a mission once again. Duakop finding time as well, down in P7 as it stands, but he is moving quickly. Philip Manar to the 0.5. Fantastic lap there from the South African. So this is not done and dusted just yet. Purple sectors, though, from Gronewald out to the final corner. So composed. Can he even do a 0.4? He can. A 0.450 from the number 32 car. Do not be misled by that number plate. If you're familiar with the world of LFM and the Case King Pro Series, this is the top split of drivers participating in this championship. Their number plate in the server is a representation of their relative elo within the LFM ranking system. Gronewald with the number 32 car out of our very nicely stacked grid of 38 cars this evening is very much at the pointy end of the field, but with a rather high number plate car. Now, typically, that often reflects a driver that maybe is working their way up through the ranks on the LFM system, or is maybe of a slightly slower pace. Tobias Gronewald, he, I think, has just been a little bit less present in terms of LFM races and getting that ranking up, but he is certainly no stranger to driving quickly on ACC. An immensely quick driver, and he is certainly showcasing that right now, as is, oh, that was a shame, Florian Duakop. I thought for a second was absolutely flying. He just decided to park it at turn 1, but he has got himself up into a top 4, and that is 2 Hondas inside of the top 5. And then we have the likes of Philip Manar in the Mustang, as it stands right now. We've got Karppinen in the Bentley, George Boothby in the Mustang as well. Aston Martin inside the top 10 as well. Michael Frey jumps up the order in the Porsche. Good lap there from the Swiss driver. Every now and again, we've seen glimpses of really good pace from Michael Frey as he gets himself into the top 10. And looking at the manufacturers, it's not really too distinct in terms of which one has an advantage over the other, which is absolutely fantastic news for us. Michael Frey on a bit of indecision as to when he wants to embark on his next lap. And we will look to try to go on board with somebody making their way around. As it stands, I think the number 28 car is about to start a lap. That is Carlton the Turk. So we will go on board with the McLaren driver. We haven't been on board with the McLaren in a while. So going on down towards turn 1, then braking around the 80-meter mark, turning it, use that camber on the inside. Be careful with the traction. Squaring up on the exit over to the right-hand side. Ready to swing it into the apex of turn 2. Patience on the throttle. Use a little bit of curb for the rotation. All the exit you can get away with without invalidating track limits. Again, towards the inside lane. Rotate the car through there, clip a little bit of that curb, use as much as you can get away with through the right-hander, and then making your way on down towards this tricky series of S's into 5 and 6. Camber is your friend in these ones. You can carry a little bit more speed through turn 5. You sacrifice the entry for 6, but as long as you square up the exit nicely and get a good run using the AstroTurf on the exits, you will be just fine. Towards turn 7 of the Dunlop hairpin. Double apex approach here for most cars. Again, use that camber, use gravity to help slow the car down with a little bit of engine braking, then power on out towards the Schumacher S. Use a bit of that outside curve to help swing the car into the apex. Commitment needed here, and a lot of confidence in the high-speed stuff. The McLaren, good grip through those medium high-speed corners. Little bit of the right-hand runoff of the track on the entry in towards 10, using each of those curbs, but missed a curb of 11. It will start to over-rotate the car. Careful with track limits on the exit there and the gravel trap. You will lose momentum. And then through turn 12, easy flat, even in the wet, unless it is really, really rainy conditions. And now here comes the chicane of 13-14. Late braking, 50-meter board. Be careful of those big anti-cut curbs. Use all of that exit curb, excuse me, the entry curb on the run in towards turn 15. Some cars will take it, some cars won't, and then try to maximize that run out of the final corner. Now we saw, of course, the car that bailing out of that last lap, and he looks to set up another one. Karppinen up by a 1/10 of a second on his lap at the moment in the opening sector as well. So some time on the board. And we'll see how the Bentley gets on. He's currently a couple of tenths away from what he needs for pole position. He has taken pole already once so far this season, though, I believe, if memory serves correctly. I'm sure Kylo in the chat, our resident statistician, will be able to remind me of that. But I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Suzuka, if it wasn't pole position, it was certainly front row, if nothing else, for the number 14 car. So he has had good one-lap pace from time to time so far this season as he charges on up towards the Schumacher S's. Who else is improving? Correcas further down the order in the Ferrari, finding some time as well. So just a little bit behind on circuit compared to the Bentley that we were following a moment ago. Walsingham finding lap time. And another driver also that we have had in the Pro Series, I believe, before. Eduardo Ruggiero, the Italian, making a comeback at the Nürburgring. Has been impressive, I think, every time we've seen him, if memory serves correctly. Just outside of a top 10 on what is an incredibly competitive grid. You can see there Sam Gaskell, a lot of support for him in the chat. Identical lap time to Noah Reeder. And after that margin between Gronewald and Del Fanta at the pointy end of the grid, there is just a quarter of a second from P2 down towards P10. Absolutely incredibly fine margins here, up and down the grid, as cars starting to improve in the closing stages of this qualifying session. As that was Nicholas Huben finding an improvement. He goes up into P6 for the time being. He'll be starting his final lap as George Boothby has parked up, and that is going to be George Boothby's qualifying over and done with, and it will only be good enough for P7. Now, we know he can be special in the races and he can move up the order, but he's certainly got a lot of work to do if he does want to get the race win there from P7 on the grid. And there are other cars improving right now. Ruggiero goes up into P9. He'll still have time for another lap. Philip Manar is finding some time. Carpenter pulls alongside the road, so it won't be a pole position for the Bentley. As it stands, it will be only good enough for the second row of the grid, but there's still plenty of opportunity in the race. Do not be mistaken. Sasha Vasta further down the order as well, finding a 10th or 2. Max Florence was finding some time as well. Schneckenberger in the Lamborghini as well, the number 38 car in P36, trying to move his way up the order as well, but it's very, very close inside of the top 10. No one really finding major improvements as it stands, as we try to catch up on Michael Frey. There he is. It was marginal on his Delta as well. Last week's race winner, Michael Moning, finding some lap time. And we'll see as these final laps start to come on in. How is it all going to fare? Florian Duacop, Tomas Gronewald, as Duacop crosses the line, gets himself onto the front row. He's been so good at times in qualifying. Hasn't always been able to hook it together in the race, but he's got himself in a very strong position. Michael Moniz found a couple of tenths of a second. Could be good enough to make his way to top 10. It is P8 for last week's race winner. And we'll see what of these other drivers got in the tank. Tobias Gronewald, he's had a moment, I think, by the looks of it, so no further improvement for him. Noah Reeder is finding some time. Eric Del Fanta a bit further along in the lap, marginal with his Delta, but it's looking like it could be pole position glory for Gronewald. The only man to a point for so far. Del Fanta would need a massive final corner here. He could still pip Duacop to the front row, as it is Honda 1, 2, 3 as it stands right now. It is an improvement by the 0.003 of a second. Duacop will hold on. Leon Burns crosses the line. He does improve, but he doesn't change his position. Martin Lawrence in the other of the Bentleys heading towards the time in line now. He jumps up in towards P18, and we've got Poznikov as well. Half a second gain for him. He's going to go into the 52s. Might be challenging around for the top 15. It's very close in that part of the pack. Doesn't quite hook together the final corner, and he will only go into 24th position, as I think we have one more car making their way towards the line. But that is qualifying over and done with, and we'll be making our way onto the grid in just a moment. But Tobias Gronewald leading that trio of Hondas. It's looking like it's a pretty handy car for the evening, you'd have to say. and they are looking very competitive. But one interesting group at the front: Grunwald, Duacop, and Del Fanta. Grunwald, no stranger to winning. Duacop has won in the Pro Series in the past. It's been a while. He does certainly love to give us drama all the way to the end of the race. Del Fanta kept his cool at the beginning of the season, took the race win there when he had the pace. And he was so patient in the race as well. He got stronger relative to that qualifying performance, so you cannot rule him out whatsoever. And those other cars behind, Menard, Carpenter, Huben, Boothby, Moaning, Frey, Ruggiero, all inside of top 10 as well. Still have plenty of opportunities, and it could all kick off at turn 1 as well. So certainly is going to be an interesting one, I have no doubt, as we will look to run through our qualifying grid order and see exactly how they line up for the evening. And I'd be very interested to get your thoughts watching at home after that qualifying session. How are we feeling from that one? Who do we think the money is on for the race win today? Clearly, the Hondas are looking good over the course of one lap, but sometimes race trim can be a very different story. Consistency is key. Track limits are a tricky business here as well, and that can certainly shift things. So I'll be very interested to get your guys' opinion on who is looking to potentially be in contention for that race win today. And we will start to take a little bit of a walk through our grid in just a second. So, Tobias Grunwald starts on pole position then, ahead of Florian Duacop. A good qualifying from the German driver, as he lines up on the front row for the second time this season, ahead of Eric Del Fanta, the man that took the race win at the season opener. He'll line up on the second row of the grid with the Mustang, courtesy of that rear wing, making sure everyone knew what car it was. Philip Menard in the number 8. He'll be the lead of the number 8 American pieces of machinery for today. Timo Karppinen lines up in P5 in the Bentley. Good stuff from him with Nicholas Huben. Dominated in Silverstone. P6 start today. And he is a driver that has been in contention for championships in the past purely through consistency. A few seasons ago, it went down to the wire between himself and I think him, to be honest, I think it was Carreras? I think it might have been Carreras, if I'm not mistaken. And at Monza, he hadn't taken a race victory all season long, but he kept himself in that fight, the championship alive, all the way until the final moments. And it was snatched away from him at the very end. The rest of the top 10 will be closed out with Boothby, Moaning, Frey, and Ruggiero, with Carreras and Aidan Walsingham rounding out the 6th row of the grid. Leon Burnt, who was so impressive at Watkins Glen, really did feel like he had a race win taken away from him on that day. He'll be looking to bounce back. Sam Gaskell, driver that there has been considerable support for in the chat. We'll see how he gets on this evening as well. Noah Reader for Team Nitro, again being the lead of that team. Marco Bischoff, the 2-time Pro Series champion, not extracting the same sort of pace over one lap as his teammate. Marco Schada and Fabrizio Campanella make up the next couple of positions on the grid, with the 9th row rounded out by Martin Lawrence in the next of those Bentleys. Lauren Prima starts in P19 in the number 29 car, and he'll be joined on the 10th row of the grid by Carl Natter, the driver we went on board with, giving us a fantastic showcase of the exhilarating roller coaster circuit that is the Nürburgring. 60 minutes of action shortly going to kick off here, and I cannot wait to see how these drivers get on. Danil Panfyorov in 21st place, ahead of Lucas Roda on the 11th row of the grid. Valentin Barry, the Frenchman, down in 23rd position for the Veloce team. And then Andrew Poznikov did improve at the end, maybe not quite as much out of the car that he would have liked to have extracted, and especially when you saw those top 3 positions locked out by the very same platform. He'll be sitting there scratching his head, wondering how were those guys finding that lap time. Marco Bischoff starts in 25th position, with Sasha Vasta starting in 26th ahead of Fabio Zerbin. And he'll be joined on the 14th row of the grid by Jardier, who once again I'm sure will be looking to try to make his way up the order. Has had some poor luck in his race starts recently, But we'll see how he gets on tonight. Of course, so often is able to move his way up through the order. Vasa Kolosov starts in 29th place ahead of Henrik Gamble in the number 36 BMW. Vincent Proel, the next of the Ferraris on the grid, just ahead of Samir Foch in the Mustang. Definitely a distinct delivery on board the number 21 car. Difficult one to miss from the beloved streamer. Fabio Steyer starts in 33rd place for Flyby Esports, ahead of Lukas Schneckenberger in the Lamborghini, the number 38 car, starting in 34th position. I think the last of our Ferraris, potentially Joe McLaren. Bit of an odd one. Number 35 car starting in P35. Wonderful little bit of contradiction there as Max Florence starts in 36th place in the Mercedes. The Aston Martin of Krzysztof Bukowski will start on the final row of the grid, just alongside his fellow Aston Martin of Thomas Morant. And that makes up your grid for the evening. And we'll be seeing exactly how our drivers are looking to get on. Tobias Grunewald is looking extremely strong. People in chat already, certainly, and I think rightfully so, seeing him as a potential favourite for the race win today, but it can all kick off and change ever so quickly. Florian Duacop, he'll be looking to try to see, can he clinch a race victory after what has been, it's just eluded him recently. He's had some really good form end of last season. Nordschleifer, dominant in qualifying, led the race for so long, and then Jardier in the Aston Martin, just able to preserve his tyres, keep his nerve in those tricky changing conditions, snatched it away from the German driver. Watkins Glen, beginning of the season, pole position for the Honda once again, but in race trim wasn't able to convert it. Now we take to the Nürburgring. It's not a circuit where he's won out before, but he is clearly dialed in. The car is working well, and we'll have to see, can he put his compatriot Grunewald under pressure over the course of a race distance, or will Del Fanta rise to the top of the order once again, or will it all kick off at the front of the field on the opening lap and open up an opportunity for someone further down? We'll have to wait and see, but the 5th round of the Case King Pro Series is about to get underway here at the Nürburgring. Who's going to get the jump at the lights? It looks like a pretty even start, though. Duacop very nicely on the outside line. He's going to be putting pressure onto Grunewald. He's into the lead on the run down. It wasn't a great start at all, as Carpenter also trying to move towards the inside line. Who's going to be bravest under braking as they all go in 3-4 wide? Tobias Grunewald holds onto position, manages to cover it off from Florian Duacop. So it is Duacop in P2, but Menard trying to go side by side now with Eric Del Fanta. There was Ruggiero going wide in the background, but the Mustang now up into P3. Carpenter holds station in P5, watching for the opportunities behind. 3 wide in the background, a little bit further down the order. It's all kicking off, and it was Walsingham that came out pouring that. Carpenter taking to the grass further up, a little bit contact with Eric Del Fanta as well, as the top 3 try to break away through turn 5. They go Boothby into P6, and Carpenter trying to make it work around the outside of Eric Del Fanta. Through 6 they go. They're still side by side. Incredible stuff. And Del Fanta so far the biggest loser if he does take this position loss to the Bentley, and there's contact on the run towards Dunlop. And that was a very risky and aggressive move just before the braking zone from Carpenter. And whilst I think Del Fanta hasn't come away from that with losing a position, I'm sure he'll be a bit frustrated by that. And Timo Carpenter, one of the chat's favourites, head in hands, I'm sure, from the Finnish driver. I think an overly ambitious and aggressive move to try to get the job done, and it's got himself stacked firmly into the pack. Look at this, the chaos further down the order as they wind their through in towards the final sector. And he's got an awful lot of work to do, and it's like Suzuka all over again. Promising qualifying, but disaster in the opening portion of the race, heavily compromising how it's going to play from here on out. And it's going to get so busy as everyone's ducking, diving, trying to hunt around for positions. In towards the chicane they go. Carpenter watching on to those ahead. Samir Foch goes around with the McLaren car, and that's collected by one of the other cars. There you go, Samir Foch, car centre plate, Joe McLaren almost into the pit lane, trying to take evasive action. So the Nürburgring delivering the carnage immediately in the drama as we kick the second lap of underway. It's pretty even station at the front, although Florian Duacop certainly holding holding on to the tail of Tobias Grunewald, with Philip Menard bringing up the rear in a P3. Del Fanta managing to hold on to P4 after that scary moment in towards the Dunlop chicane, but they continue on. The stewards, I'm sure, will have a few things to say about the opening lap of the race. Valentin Barrier side by side with Panfiorov, as Lauren Prima as well trying to hold on to that position in the Mustang just up ahead. Will have to take the defensive line with the McLaren trying to go towards the outside. Can't quite get enough of the run. The Mustang has so much torque. We saw that last week at the Hungaroring. So often able to choose its track position into the braking zone, just courtesy of the way it pulls away from most of the other cars on the grid. So Valentin will have to slot into position for the time being, but they continue on in towards Dunlop curve once again. That's Zerbin side by side with Kolosov. Zerbin comes out on top in that battle in the Ferrari, and then you can see Karppinen all the way down in 31st positions. 26 positions lost there for the Bentley driver. Frustration there without doubt from the Finn, and you see he's already ducking and diving. Zerbin has to hold his nerve. And he's also trying to hunt around the back of the Porsche up ahead. That's Steyer chopping and changing lines. Karppinen lunges up the inside. He's trying to get his way back through the order. It's not a very long race to get moves done, and that is a problem as we go to the helicam, because it's all going to kick off once again up towards the chicane. Do they look to go side by side in the background? They do not. By the looks of it, they stay as they were. Grunewald getting his head down. Fastest lap of the race so far, but only by less, 15 thousandths of a second over the pace of Florian Duerkop. There is nothing right now to choose between them. Very fine margins up and down the order. We've also got this little trio battling. Oh, dear. Oh, steady on. As Sam Gaskell has a little bit of a moment, but we do continue on as we go. Oh, Sam Gaskell is having a time as it stands right now, and he's the only car that seems to be causing an issue for me. So whilst unfortunately I don't wish that upon Gaskell whatsoever, but I don't actually think that that is to do with me for once. So we will carry on. We'll see what happens. But meanwhile, Florian Duerkop trying to close down that gap towards Tobias Grunewald. Philip Menard holding in the background. Del Fanta, there is a big discontinuity in pace right now between our top three and those behind. Del Fanta, Boothby, 0.4 of a second off this lead trio. It's going to be really interesting to see, because if Philip Menard can get into the slipstream, can lock himself under the rear wing of these Hondas ahead. Now, the Hondas, they're pretty handy in a straight line, but that Mustang is something special. It is formidable, and it makes an appropriate noise. Like, sometimes we've had, certain cars that are fast in a straight line, but the kind of, the BMW at one point was immensely quick in a straight line as well, and it kind of just... It sounds a bit like a bus. It's not exactly the most inspiring of sounds to go racing with, but the Mustang, that at least tells you that it's quick in a straight line, and certainly shifting its way along, as is the Mustang of George Boothby, who may be giving us a good indication of exactly what is that exchange of speed likely to be like between the Honda and the Mustang. Another fastest lap from Grunewald, but it's beaten by Florian Duerkop by 1/10 of a second. Florian, very quick in the early stages of the race. Here comes George Boothby. Does he think about a move towards turn one? No, he shows the nose. But again, he knows it's all about the long game in terms of the championship fight. George Boothby, this title has eluded him over these past seasons, despite being one of the winningest drivers being the winningest driver in Pro Series history. It's just not something he's quite been able to conquer. Meanwhile, Walsingham battling away with his old teammate Grant Karekas, who is up. They're both up positions. Narita behind, up 3 positions as well, as they scrap around the rear of Michael Frey. Campanella and see Anna Valentin Barrier, big winners on the opening part of the race so far. 4 positions gained each. Let's have a little bit of a look, see how Jardier is getting on further down the order. And not quite the biggest mover. It looks like Fabio Steyer might be the biggest mover in the field, just behind in the number 26 car as they motor along. As Walsingham and Karekas. Oh, I think Karekas, something's gone on there. Down at the Dunlop hairpin. Was there a mistake from the young Lithuanian? How is it that Walsingham's been able to get the job done? So we'll go on board with the Mustang. Through turn 6 they went. Now, is it going to be contact? You see, gaining all the way down. Does he? He does lunge it down the inside. Caracas, very, very conscious in the mirrors. My goodness, there was a lot. There was a lot of dependency there on Caracas providing the room to his old teammate. But Walsingham sending it from downtown, getting the job done. And that Mustang, it does just open up opportunities that other cars just cannot instigate. As meanwhile, something has kicked off further down the order. We've got McLaren and Florence around. That's the number 35 car rejoining from the grass. What has gone on here? So Max Florence, not in camera shot just yet. Does he have a moment elsewhere? I can't see Florence at all now. He might have left the server. What is going to be taking place here? So there's Florence further up the order. Also, he gets tagged. Oh, there's big contact there. And then, oh my goodness, would you believe it? Number 35 car just gets pinged at the last second. And that is very, very unfortunate. And he would have been somewhat blindsided by that as well, as they continue on. And that is not what he would have been wanting whatsoever. They both come into the pits. And frustration there for both of those drivers. As now I seem to have made the horrible mistake of trying to use the replay one more time, and I've been hijacked by the cameras again. So it appears that temporarily we are staring at the incredibly adrenaline-fueled pit stop of Joe McLaren and Max Florence in pit lane. So we may have to take a little bit of it. We'll be able to capture some really good shots down the start-finish straight when the drivers make their way around. They're just coming in towards turn 12 at the moment. There we go. At least we're making our way up the order. I'm trying to actually head towards the fight at the front of the field, but it may take just a moment. I can tell you that Florian Duerkop is giving Tobias Gronewald a very hard time in that battle for the race lead, which we do finally make our way over to, and we will stick with it in just a while. I might have to do a little bit of race prediction once again, but this is your fight for the race lead. Campanella bring out the white flag for a moment. I'm not sure if he has had an incident, but Duerkop now senses an opportunity. He's trying to go around the outside once again. It didn't work out for him on the opening lap of the race, but he has got Gronewald looking in the rear view mirrors of Philip Menard all the time, watching, waiting for an opportunity in that Mustang, and we've seen that Mustang can close the distance on other cars, and Philip Menard knows this. Florian Duerkop knows this as well. And see, number 7 car in hot pursuit, but Gronewald, despite that fantastic race trim performance, doesn't quite look like he is right now the one with the ultimate pace. It was a 10th advantage for Duerkop last time around, as he tries to tuck himself under the rear wing of the number 32 car. In towards Dunlop they go, using that camera of the corner, the engine braking from the Honda, and all in the meantime just keeping one eye in the rearview mirrors of that Mustang of Philip Menard, because it's half a second at the moment through the Schumacher S's, and as they make their way on up in towards this fantastic series of S's of 10 and 11, this is where the Mustang will really start to pick up pace. Maybe it hasn't quite got the same level of rotation that the Honda can ultimately deliver, but the climb up the hill, that's where this car starts to be immensely strong. And Philip Menard just showing his nose, showing his presence, and it's getting very, very interesting between the top 3. And there you go, not too far behind. Delphanta, Boothby, Huben, Moaning, all in that fight for P4 at the moment. But anything kicks off here, and they will be there very quickly to pounce on the attack. Duerkop, once again, locks underneath the rear wing of Tobias Gronewald. Does he think about a move towards turn 1? He doesn't, but Philip Menard experimenting with the lines under braking, trying to see how late can he brake towards into that corner, and seeing if he can get the job done. But it'd have to be a brave, brave maneuver from the Mustang driver. So wind their way once again through the Mercedes Arena section. Turn 4. So tricky in terms of track limits. They do have a bit of traffic coming up as well as they continue on. Gronewald last time around just a smidge quicker than the car behind. Phil Menard, quickest of the bunch by just a few hundredths, but it's very even on pace between his cars. You can see, though, the first sector, that's where the Honda really outshines this Mustang. Its agility, its nimbleness, partly due to its overall handling characteristics, and also due to the kind of the rotation, the rake that tends to work quite nicely within the Honda platform as well. The engine placement all gives it that extra bit of pointiness. Allows in those opening corners to be so quick. But then, you know, the middle sector pretty even. The final sector, Mustang, very quick indeed. Instant for Lauren Prima further down the order. I'd love to have a look at it, but we're now here, and until I have an opportunity to attempt to restart the overlay and do something, this is where we all remain to be. But whilst it's a battle for the race lead, I think at least we've been hijacked by the cameras in a more useful area this time around. Florian Duerkop, you can see, more committed on the entry towards the final turn. The gap, a tenth of a second less than it was last time round. No Reader and Grant Carreras have been battling further down the order. Florian Duerkop, does he think about a lunge in towards turn one? Not this time around. Opportunities are available for the German driver. There's a little bit of a slide through turn two. They go, and Tobias Grunwald right now withstanding the pressure. It's all kicking off behind. We've got Frey, Walsingham, Carreras and Ida all battling away. And I would absolutely love to see what is going on there. This fight in the race lead has just opened up a little bit of a smidge from where it was before. So what I think we will do is we may look to try to expect... Well, okay, I put that instruction in for the camera approximately 4.5 minutes ago. So that's the sort of pace that we're working with, everybody, in this situation. So we've now got the onboard of Florian Duerkop, so we can keep an eye on how he is trying to pursue Grunewald, as also keeping an eye in the rear view mirror, the digitized mirror of his GT3 car. As you can see, it's far more comfortable through the Schumacher S's. Grunewald having to flirt with the edges of the gravel track just a little bit more than he would like to, and he's constantly using up more and more track width. Now, you know, that may be the lines that he's ultimately comfortable with, but it does also suggest to me that those tyres maybe not handling themselves quite so nicely on the number 32 car compared to the Honda that we are on board with of Florian Duerkop, who again in the final chicane, you have to be so committed on the entry here. Little bit of hesitation in the middle of the corner from Grunewald, but he squares up the exit nice enough. Frey, oh, something's happened. Further down, Walsingham, Carreras, I think at a moment there was almost a car in pit lane for a second there. It's all kicking off outside of the top 10. Philip Menard, you can see in hot pursuit in the rear view mirror of the number 7 car. So definitely a lot of jostling position further down the order. And I would so love to be seeing what's going on right now. And I am going to have to make a tactical decision on this front. You can just see, oh my goodness, look at that. Between P10 and P16, there's about 0.8 of a second between all of them. This gap at the front has somewhat opened up. So I think for just a brief moment, what we shall do, we'll try a couple of different approaches. Let's see if we can stay in session and restart this overlay, and then get things back underway. See if we have any better luck. If not, we may have to do a bit of jiggery-pokery on a couple of other notes and get things going once more. And let's see what we can do. How does this get us going with this one? And the answer is not very far at all. You can see that Tobias Grunewald up ahead again, making little mistakes here and there, and that is not what he would be wanting to deliver right now. So tricky around this Nürburgring race circuit. Further down the order, still a very intense fight between everybody. And again, following in the slipstream, following that closely into the chicane as well, is so tricky. And what tactical outbreak? I would. The problem is, I would love to do a tactical outbreak, but I don't actually know how to do one. So instead, what we'll have to do is we will have to do a little bit of temporary radio commentator transition here, and we'll look for some more pictures of the Nürburgring race circuit, and we will try to get things back underway in terms of our overlay, and also never open a replay again, because otherwise we do seem to run into a little bit of strife on that front. That as we continue on and see how the drivers get on. So a very interesting start of the race so far. Close to the front between our top three of Philip Manart and the two Hondas out in front. And right now it's so tough to tell which one is going to be in the best position to take it to the end of the race. Because how do you place your money on that one? With the cars being so close to one another. It's such a tricky one to predict. We're very interested to get your opinions and ideas watching at home with what you've seen so far. Right now it's two Hondas versus the Mustang, and that Mustang of Philip Manart is just looking ever so competitive and trying to see what the opportunities are for that car to give him an opportunity to send up the inside somewhere, maybe even go for something strategic. If those two Hondas in front start to squabble away, the undercut is a very, very big possibility for a way in which he can move his way up the order, as we are making our way back towards the server. So hopefully we'll be underway once again fairly shortly. So no, don't worry, we are not on the wrong scene, but we are certainly trying to get things back underway and see if we can get the full picture operation once more and see exactly how our drivers are getting on, because they are putting on an exceptional show this evening here at the Nürburgring. What would you expect any different? It's the Nürburgring. It's an incredible race circuit, and it is delivering action in absolute buckets as it stands. And I can at least say that by the looks of it, on the face of it, I think we're in a pretty good spot. So we'll go back to live pictures, and I believe we are at least underway once more with a working overlay. Hopefully that stays with us for the foreseeable future, and we'll see how our drivers get on. So back to what is happening here. Tobias Grunewald still leading the way, and let's have a bit of a look further down the order. Did see mention of Jarnier being in a scrap of his own, and it's certainly an intense one indeed, as that is Sasha Vassner just in front of the number 6 car as the pit window has just opened. So there's opportunities for the undercuts, and strategy to start to come into effect for this race has now started to take place. And we'll have to see who is going to be brave at going on towards a bit of an earlier stop. Do you try to go for that gamble, give the opportunities to yourself, get some clean air, get some fresh tyres on board, and make your way past those cars when they scrap away, but leave yourself vulnerable later on in the race? And that's, that's always the difficulty and the exchange. And thank you very much. Appreciate all of the help and support in the chat for trying to get things underway. And we are, I think, all up and running and ready to go again. Just nicely timed, because George Buthy is applying the pressure to Eric Del Fanta for P4. Honda hasn't relinquished his position just yet, but that Mustang looking ever more threatening. The pace has evened out between the top 4 as Michael Frey. Has he had a bit of an excursion? No, he hasn't, but he is certainly under pressure from Walsingham. A bit of an aggressive move towards the inside line into the braking zone. Manages to cover it off. Oh, there was a bit of contact on the exit there. You saw the Mustang have to jump on the brakes. Also, Teemu Karppinen has got himself back up into 20th position. Very impressive. He lost 26 places from P4 at one point in this race, and he's gained 10 positions since that mistake on the opening phase of the race. I haven't even looked at the stewards' inquiries. We've had so many other shenanigans going on in this one. As also that fight just outside of the top 10, for the time being, seems to have somewhat calmed down. But with strategy starting to open up, come into effect, who knows how it may end up playing out from here. looking at the stewarding sheet, we have got a 5-second time penalty for the number 18 car for a collision on the first lap of the race. That was Marco Schade, who is in pit lane, as that was a mistake there for Michael Frey, and sweeping around the outside. Noah Reeder, he's trying to make it stick, and he may open up the opportunity for Granted Carreras, the champion from a few seasons ago, trying to see if he can find a way through in the Ferrari. It's so difficult to make moves sometimes in this car because it is underpowered in terms of torque. Tries to go for the over and under, opportunity not given. Noah Reeder has it covered, and now the torque will surely take over on board the number 16 car, because the V8 will just pull away. It pulls away so ridiculously quick, and it's Michael Frey already on the defensive once again into the chicane. Bit of an awkward line there for Ida. Has he sacrificed to Carreras into the pits? He doesn't want anything else to do with this, and it makes sense for this car because Carreras, he's clearly got some pace. The Ferrari is also a car that can definitely preserve its tyres, but right now, he just cannot use that pace. Now, Frey already having to go defensive in towards turn 1, and that's the reason why, because the Mustang is powering its way on by in towards the first corner. Deep on the brakes there for the Swiss driver, battling behind as well between Gaskell and the Ferrari of Leon Burns, as Frey still fighting on board torque power of the flat 6, managing to keep the Mustang honest, as there's that cluster of 4 cars all having absolute squabble and a half just in the background. Leon Burns at the lead of it. Lawrence around the outside of Gaskell now. It's Panfiorov trying to find a way through in the Aston Martin, and then Valentin watching on in the McLaren, seeing these 3 going toe-to-toe. Lamborghini on the inside line of turn 6 then. McLaren trying to find a little bit of a gap on the run up the hill, as they then head on down towards Dunlop Curve. Back and forth between those cars. Valentin, though, he has to be careful because he's got Lucas Roda on his gearbox now, as well as it's very deep under brake from 1 but 2 cars in towards the hairpin. McLaren of Valentin could not quite get the pair of them. Sam Gaskell does take the position, but it did come at the cost of now having the Frenchman all over his gearbox, as Lucas Roda looked like he had a very tidy exit through there. May apply the pressure to Danil in just a second, as there's Carpenter on the attack as well. And that's a dive from downtown. He is not wasting any time in that Bentley. My goodness, quick hands there. Kripax Engineering, I think he needs to up the hacks indeed to keep the rear end of that Bentley plances. My goodness, that was an oversteer moment and a half to keep it all together there. Sent Mr. Commentator into disarray, trying to hold on to the back end of the Bentley, and he bails off into the pit. Oh dear, that's Carnateur having an excursion, and he won't be boxing this lap. Unfortunately, conceding a couple of positions in the process, and that's Sasha Vassen sneaking past, and I think even Jardier may have an opportunity as well. Perhaps we'll have to wait and see. Can he do anything about the McLaren just ahead of him? He can't. And heading towards the hairpin they go, but that is the danger of cutting across aggressively like that into pit lane. And absolutely, I hope he has enough fuel for this lap as well, otherwise it's going to be a pretty dire end to his race. Oh, and he's really struggling with those rear tyres, isn't he? A couple of cars clearly having burnt through the best of the traction that their GT3 platforms have to offer, because we do live in this TC0 meta. As it stands, it does make the back ends of these cars just a little bit on the Larry side, if that wasn't evidenced enough over the course of the last lap. But at the front of the pack, we've also had Philip Menard come into the pit, so he is going for that undercut, and that could prove to be a very competitive strategy. It's so difficult sometimes to tell. It is all dependent upon how quickly can you get temperature into the tyres, how much clean air do you get, how much squabbling goes on between the cars that you were fighting with. Jardier loses a little bit of momentum there. There's Natera actually more on the attack now of Sasha Vassner, as Pranav bringing some Lamborghini representation in through the form of the Visceral Racing team. And Lamborghini, as Florian Duacop now comes into the pits, so Grunwald is going to have 2 cars trying to go for the undercut on him here. He has managed to extend his margin just a smidge over the cars behind. He has now got a second gap to Florian. But the Lamborghini a bit more represented than it was previously. but it is certainly a car that we see slightly less so. Because either Sam Gaskell in the background, your lead of those Lamborghinis, hunting down Martin Lawrence in what is the lead of the Bentleys in this race, courtesy of Thibaut Carpenter having his rather unfortunate miscalculation early on in this race, as there are a few more penalties actually to run through as well. We'll also keep an eye on Philip Menard and see whereabouts does he emerge relative to Florian Duakop coming out of pit lane. We've had a 10-second time penalty in number 31 car. That's Krzysztof Makowski for an incident on lap 4. The number 25 car, a 15-second time penalty for them. That was Panfyorov. 5-second time penalty for the number 18. That was Marco Schada. And then some warnings, and that is it so far. But now, here's the big question. Philip Menard, has he made the undercut work? And the answer is no. Florian Duakop then emerges out ahead, and emerges with give or take about as much of a gap, if not larger, definitely larger actually, than what we saw before. So, now it could be one of two things. Either not the best in-lap, out-lap combination stop, maybe missed his mark. We have seen it happen before for the Mustang of Philip Menard, or maybe the undercut not so powerful. But you can see there's a lot of drivers that have decided to go for it, so there is concern about how powerful it could be. Carpenter, I think, has benefited actually somewhat, although could also be slightly misrepresented. He has got better pace than his current race position would indicate, so of course always likely that he gets that clean air, that he is able to make it work a bit better. So the variability in the strategy presented, but Gronewald is reacting. Some cars staying out. Huben, Moning, Buffy and Delfanta, they're going for the overcut strategy then, trying to get these tyres to last a little bit longer. But Tobias Gronewald comes in from the race lead, and it'll all be down to whether or not Florian Duakop is able to close that distance on the undercut strategy. Oh, this is talking about closing the distance. Sam Gaskell getting very late on the brakes in towards turn 1. Close to the rear of Martin Lawrence. Manages to keep it all together. But you've got to be so careful. We've seen how easy it is. So these drivers, absolutely some of the very best on the LFM platform. But even the very best can manage to make a mistake under pressure. As Tobias Gronewald then wheels down out of pit lane. Where is that Honda going to emerge? I can hear one on the way, but there he is. Florian Duakop is just coming in towards the braking zone, so they do maintain order, but it does look like Florian Duakop, the gap is somewhat along the lines of what it was before, but now the question is how much more pace does Florian on those tyres that are already warmed up have over the cars ahead? Oh my goodness, it's all chaos further down the order between these guys. No Reed trying to go around the outside of Michael Frey. The Porsche should get the power down nicely on the exit of turn 1 there. And they fly on through. 4 cars absolutely lying astern. That's Grant Carreras, who went for that undercut, trying to capitalize on his tires right now. But he can't get the move done. And that Mustang ahead is going to prove very, very difficult for the Ferrari to make his way through, scrapping away as well the trio of Schada, Kolosov and Steyer. Making some fantastic fights up and down the order. This is what we love about the Case King Pro Series. No matter what car, no matter what part of the grid you are in, you are always in for a drama-filled, adrenaline-filled time, and it gives us some fantastic GT3 action to bear witness to every single week that we go racing. Apparently, Nicholas Huben complaining a little bit about his car, maybe the Aston Martin not working in the way that he would necessarily like. Also got some breakdowns there of the Lamborghini's weaknesses. Not the best in terms of straight line speed. And so audacious braking moves must be done into turn 1 if the maneuvers are to be done. And speaking of, oh my goodness, Tobias Gronewald, there is no way, surely, that must be a drive-through penalty for track limits. That's the only thing it can be I can possibly think of. And Florian Duakop is now your race leader. Tobias Gronewald, I don't know if he had a moment because the gap was suddenly closed, and it's a stop-go 30-second penalty. So he sped into pit lane. I wonder if that's also the reason why the gap was as large as it was, because he's gained a little bit of margin. Difficult to say. Sometimes you can get away with it if you back off further down pit lane, but absolute chaos down the order. Oh my goodness, turn one's a complete bloodbath. Talking about audacious moves in towards turn one. Narita trying to send one from downtown. Sam Gaskell emerging in this fight as well, just trying to pick a position. The two Lamborghinis of those two, their teammates as well. That's Campanella on the inside line, and Teemu Karppinen has emerged in the party as well. Says, don't mind if I do that, so I'm just trying to get back to where I started. Trying to go around the outside then of turn 3. Drama up and down the order. Wherever you look, somehow they all stay together as they were. Although Grant Korekas, I think, did benefit, managed to squeeze his way on by Noarida in all of that, and that could be a crucial move for the Ferrari driver. But that Mustang definitely has an opportunity to reclaim the position if he gets underneath the rear wing of the 296 as Delfanta, Boothby, Moaning, Lawrence, Roda, Jardier all come into pit lane now. But can you believe it? Tobias Grunewald leading the way here at the Nürburgring may have just gifted Florian Duakop a race win, but Florian hasn't always necessarily had the greatest of histories of converting these race winning opportunities. He's been a race winner once before and once only in the Pro Series, and he did it in dramatic fashion over the mountain. He crashed on the penultimate lap after having about a 30-second lead over the rest of the field. Looked like it was a dominant display. Went down to the wire under pressure by the likes of Korekas and George Boothby, as Teemu Karppinen flying up towards the rear diffuser of Sam Gaskell. Can't make the move on towards the chicane, so have to wait for another opportunity. But the duel right now is between himself and Philip Menard. Philip Menard 1.5 seconds behind, was a 10th quicker on the last lap. And if that Mustang does get close, then he certainly has an opportunity. And speaking of opportunities, Teemu Karppinen making his way up the order once again as that was emerging out of the pit lane. Martin Lawrence, evasive action having to be taken by the Lamborghini. Look at this, absolute chaos towards turn 1. Karppinen around the outside of 1, the inside of 2, gets the job done. He's not the only one making moves because it's Boothby versus Huben. Boothby down the inside, trying to go up into P4. There's contact. These could be your championship protagonists come to the end of the season. Around the outside of turn 6, the Aston Martin holds on for now, but how much straight line speed can that Mustang provide? The answer tends to be a lot. In towards Dunlop Curve. Does Boothby think about moving on the inside? Oh, he thought about it indeed, but he couldn't get there. And Huben holds on, and they've brought in the man who's been on fine form over last week's race winner. For the first time in the first one for North America, Michael Moaning joins the fight for P4 as well. Everywhere you look, an absolutely incredible fight going on. And I see how they play out. 25 minutes worth of racing to go. And buckle in, everybody, because it's going to be an absolute cracker to the end, I'm sure. If you are enjoying the world of the Case King Pro Series and all the fantastic action it has to offer, do consider giving the channel a follow, because it's like this every single time we go racing. This isn't a particularly special or particularly unique race. This is just the way that this championship works, and it makes for some fantastic GT3 action every single time, as that's George Boothby trying to push the limits. He may be comfortable through that chicane. The Mustang can take it as Duacop sets a fast lap of the race. 0.2 of a second clear of Philip Menard's best effort, as that's Karppinen trying to dispatch of one more Lamborghini. He is flying as it stands at the moment. Could he even make it back towards the top 10? It'd be a hell of a recovery drive from the Finnish driver, and we've seen that this Bentley has a good amount of straight line speed. It's an absolute rocket ship towards turn 1. He would have been thinking what could have been. It could have been a podium at the very least for this car. A little bit more controlled and calculated this time around. In towards turn 1 he goes. It's P13 for the number 14 car, and now sets off in sight of the Mustang of Noah Reeder, who's being towed along by that Ferrari. And that'll be an interesting drag race. Bentley versus Mustang. The Mustang is quick here, but that Bentley does look like it's got something else installed under the bonnet of the number 14 car. So it'll be very interesting to see how it plays out for him. Look at these fights further down the order. This is absolutely incredible racing. The gaps P18 all the way down to 23rd place. This 6-car train of fights, all with less than half a second between them. And every single time one of them just makes a small mistake here or there, provides an opportunity to the car behind. The action all kicks off as snowballs once again. And we end up all very quickly in about 4 wide moment before you know it. The Florian Duacop out in front. Gifted the opportunity of a lifetime from Tobias Gronewald, who I think had retired in the pit lane there after giving up what was looking like it could be a very measured and controlled drive from pole to victory. But it goes to show once again how hard these guys are pushing. They push extremely hard because the prizes on offer in this championship are incredible. Of course, all brought to you by caseking.de. Your top 3 will walk away at the end of the season with some absolutely fantastic equipment to ever expand their sim racing enjoyment. Marco Bischoff gets a little bit of a wonky line on the entry to the chicane. He's not had the best of time with chicanes recently. The Hungaroring chicane caught him out on not 1 but 2 occasions, sent him around entirely. As we go back to this fight further up the order, Timo Karppinen not able to make a move, but that is Noah Reeder getting a little bit wrong under braking there, goes very deep in towards that turn, and that maybe allowed Karppinen to sense a move in towards turn 2. Can't make it stick there. Does he dive out the inside of turn 3? He's a man on a mission right now, trying to make amends for that cut across the front end of Eric Del Fanta at the beginning of the race. But Noah Reeder manages to square the car up just about in time and keep it all together. As meanwhile, Campanella and Gaskell, the 2 teammates, the 2 Lamborghinis in the field, also putting on a fantastic show inside of the top 15. But Karppinen really hassling the back of Noah Reeder. He really does look like he is driving like a man possessed. He was half a second faster than those in front. He was the fastest man on circuit last time around. He was faster than Florian Duacop, and he hasn't even got clean air. Timo Karppinen, can you imagine what he could have done if he'd remained inside that fight at the front of the order? I'm sure that is exactly what is motivating his charge right now. But he is certainly putting on a show for all of those that cheer this man on and trying to showcase exactly what he could have potentially delivered at the front of the pack. Philip Menard closing a little bit of a gap towards the front. Duacop making a mistake in the final sector, losing 0.3 of a second. Cannot afford to let that Mustang get close. Otherwise, it could be game over for the race win. Philip Menard, he knows how to win. He knows how to close these races out. And also, if there is fireworks between these drivers, then Del Fanta could also be in the mix as well. He's already won earlier this season. Timo Karppinen, bit ambitious with the late braking in towards that final chicane. Just about manages to get it stopped, but he is certainly hassling that Bentley. As meanwhile, Kranjka Rekas, he has to be so conscious of his mirrors every time you end up on the straight because that Mustang behind is just so quick. Builds up the momentum, and then it does really feel like an absolute freight train, an unstoppable force by the time you get to the braking zone. But then the Ferrari starts to pull away in the twisty stuff. The high-speed corners has the advantage, the rotation over the car behind. We'll also take a little bit of a look further down the order. Look at this train as well. Gamble, Vassner, Poznikov, Jardier, Schade, all squabbling away. Poznikov trying to square up the exit for a move on the Aston Martin ahead. Cannot do so. We'll have to wait for an opportunity to come by elsewhere, and that is pit window now closed. So, no further opportunities for cars to box, but I believe everybody has come into the pits already, so no need to be concerned on that front. It's in towards the Dunlop curve once again. Although I need to take a bit of a look towards this fight up here. Timo Karppinen really trying to move that number 14 car up the order. He's certainly got an absolute abundance of pace in this one at the moment. But that Mustang, it's not an easy car to pass because you can set up all the exits in the world, but sometimes it is just not enough to move this car out the way. The Bentley holding strong with the Mustang. Bear in mind, that's even in the slipstream. So it's the one car I've seen so far that even is remotely competitive against the Mustang. And even then, Noah Reeder just able to square out the exit. And it tends to put its power down a little bit easier, a bit kinder as well than this Bentley does. So Karppinen will have to wait on another occasion. Korekis now with an opportunity in towards turn 1, seizes it immediately. This may open opportunities elsewhere. It's very deep on the brakes for Grant Korekis. He's run very wide. Timo Carpenter on the chart as well, trying to go all the way around the outside of the Mustang. Noah Reader holds that inside line, a little bit of a nudge towards the AstroTurf. Timo Carpenter does not cut back towards the inside line. And it is very, very aggressive here as these drivers all scrapping away for the last of the top 10 positions. A break between the Mustang and the Ferrari once again emerges out of the first sector. Florian Duacop re-establishing some of that advantage out in front, 0.2 of a second quicker than for Philip Menard. Del Fanta, though, fastest car on track last time around, a 53.0, his fastest lap of the race, as Timo Carpenter looking for a move. That's where it all went wrong for him earlier on in this race. He'll be trying to make sure he doesn't make that mistake again. But you can see he's got abundance of pace as Korekis decides to dip into the Shadow Realm and come back out once again. Carpenter all over the gearbox of the Mustang just up ahead. Can he keep up momentum and keep up a run in towards turn 10? He can't. And have to try to wait. Can he even spring an attack in towards the right-hander here? He's trying for it. Sometimes it works. A little bit like Silverstone when you come out through Village Corner and into the loop. If you carry that momentum through the right-hander, you can spring that late-braking maneuver in towards turn 11. Look at that. No reader goes from being under pressure to immediately being the hunter. All over the back of the 296 ahead, but the prancing horse able to do just enough for the time being to keep the Mustang behind. A couple of different trains battling away as it is, but these are your closest fights on the circuit. You can see there as Gaskell and Campanella. Here comes the move for Noah Reader, and this time it looks like it could be job done, although it may even be an invitation for Timo Carpenter as well. How aggressive does he look to play it? Korekis trying to keep the Mustang honest here. Carpenter watching on, trying to find a way through. He'll try to take the pair of them if he can. He's trying to go for that over and under opportunity in towards turn 3. Can't get the power down soon enough, and Noah Reader, I think, has got the job done. He has indeed, and he has made his way through. Korekis trying to keep that car behind for as long as he could, but in the end the Mustang just has too much power, and it's the same repeat once again as Carpenter does not want to be wasting time here. He's been a man on a mission over past laps. He is fighting to see if he can get back into the top 10 after dropping down to P30. We have had a few incidents, but not all too many in the grand scheme of things, so there's a lot of that is hard-earned on raw pace alone. He'll be so frustrated with that mistaken error at the beginning of the race. But as they push on, opportunities surely will open for the Bentley through the Schumacher S as they go. The 296 strong there. Then the power starts to fall back the way of the Bentley. These next couple of curbs can absolutely monstrous way all over the first one. Keep it nicely rotated here. Not the best of lines for Korekis. I think Carpenter may even think about go here in towards the chicane. I can also take George Boothby still within half a second of Nicholas Huber. And here comes the Bentley towards the outside. Carpenter, he'd have to be brave to do it here. He's trying to go around the outside. Surely you can't make that work. And he just about, he's given enough room. And Sam Gaskell says, don't mind if I do. Jens slots his way up into P13. Fantastic opportunistic driving from the pair of them. And Grant Korekis, it's not the first time today that he's been rather courteous to those drivers, being aggressive around him, and it has given them opportunities to make their way past the champion from a few seasons ago. Diving down the inside is the Lamborghini. Audacious moves indeed in towards turn 1. Gaskell on the attack. He thinks that one isn't enough for him. He's trying to get Carpenter as well. Can't make it stick there. Opens up the door for Korekis, who's now back down the inside in towards turn 3. Korekis will then have the outside line for turn 4. It'll be whether or not can he get the exit through there. He can't. Sam Gaskell still on the inside. Campanella joining the party as well. And it's all about the drive on the exits. And the 296 gets the job done. Does Campanella look to overtake his teammate? He does not. But look at this fight between P13 to P17. It's just over a second between all of those cars. Incredible stuff here at the Nürburgring. And they fly on down. And seeing as Nightbot, not for the first time this evening, has once again struck down upon the chat as everyone getting a little bit excitable about the action here. And unfortunately, happiness and enjoyment is not allowed. He tries his best. He really does, honestly. He means so well. Also, last lap of the race, fastest lap of the race from Michael Moaning, a 52.9. He was 0.6 of a second quicker than Florian Duacop leading the way, who's being closed in on by Philip Menard. Sam Gaskell trying to apply the pressure once again. Carpenter's gone. Carpenter now has that clean air. He can charge after Noah Reeder and Michael Frey and try to see if he can get a top 10 finish. Here's another Bentley that could be making up a position in just a second. The number 33 of Martin Lawrence almost into the rear diffuser of the McLaren towards the outside, into the chicane. It'd be brave. We see one do it. We won't see the other. In towards the gravel. He goes. He keeps it all together just about there. Oh my goodness, something's all kicked off further down. Calm the 10. Marco Bischoff has brought the yellow flag as well. What on earth has gone on down towards the chicane? I would love to know, but I'm terrified we'll lose camera control once again. And to be honest, there's so much carnage going on. Pozniakov's around at the final corner as well. And there's so much action, I think we'll just stay on board with it as is. So something kicked off between several cars there, and they've all ended up being shuffled out of position. Noah Reeder and Michael Frey still scrapping away. Gaskell, Campanella, Van Barrier as well, scrapping with Carreras for P13. Carpenter has already taken half a second out of Noah Reeder up ahead, so he does have oodles of pace, and we still have oodles of action. Marco Schada on the charge as well, has Vladislav Kolosov to deal with behind with the McLaren as they fly on down towards turn 5. The Honda should have just a little bit more grunt than the British outfit behind in order to keep that car behind. As up at the front of the field, the pace is somewhat evening on out, but I tell you what, this is not done yet. Del Fanta is on an absolute charge here. Remember, he went for the overcut strategy. It was the long game for him in the season opener that won him that race. He is half a second to 0.6 of a second per lap quicker than the two cars ahead. And at that rate, in 3 laps' time, he'd be there with Philip Menard, and very soon to be with Florian Duacop as well. The changes inside the top 3 for those podium positions could certainly be up for grabs in the last few moments of this race. And it so often goes down to the wire. It went down to the wire last week between Michael Moaning and George Boothby, and it's looking like it's going to be just as much fireworks as before. You don't see this quite so often. Some of these battles, some of these trains of cars scrapping away for position, and now Van Barrier trying to find an opportunity. You can see Sam Gaskell applying the pressure on to Grant Carreras up the order as well. Who's going to get the advantage in towards turn 1 this time around? Whilst it is Van on the chart, I think it's going to be the Bentley of Martin Lawrence that comes steaming up the inside of 1, maybe even 2. He hangs a little bit further back this time around. Oh, there is contact! There's big contact indeed! And they somehow keep it all together. Well done, lads. Campanella and Barrier, they keep the fight going. Martin Lawrence, I think, drops out of that one, feeling a little bit bad and trying to stay away from further instance. They stay as they were. Almost Van Barrier takes P15 with that little exchange. Jallier, in the meantime, has got his way past the Aston Martin of Lucas Roda. But Martin Lawrence almost taking out 2 cars in a single hit. Valtteri Bottas-style bowling, but thankfully they managed to keep it all together, and they stay, give or take, as they were a moment ago. And the battle, the action, the carnage, the chaos can all continue on. And it is going to be fantastic in this one all the way to the end. Do give the channel a follow if you are enjoying the incredible world of the Case King Pro Series. These guys putting on a show for the ages indeed. As the fights around the top 4 still very close indeed. George Boothby has not given up on this one. Look how close he is to the back of Nicholas Huben. This Mustang is mighty in a straight line. How does he fare through the chicane? Can he stick with the Aston Martin? That was a good run there. That was a very good run for the number 1 car. You can see Huben, he's trying to prepare the exit in that car. But it was a nice and tidy line from George Boothby, and I think there's a very good opportunity here in towards turn 1. Surely it's going to have to be defensive from Nicholas Huben, because now the number 1 car trying to gain 1 position. Down the inside, George Boothby goes up into the inside. A little bit of carnage, a little bit of wheel banging, and Michael Moaning will be on the attack here as well. Last week's race winner watching on could take 2 positions here if it all kicks off, and they're still giving a squeeze to one another, and George Boothby can't keep it together. He's almost into the back of the Aston Martin in front. Incredible scenes here at the Nürburgring. 9 minutes left on the clock. Everywhere you look is drama up and down the order, but they will stay as they were. Meanwhile, Martin Lawrence has tried to make the move on Campanella. Campanella says thank you very much, takes it on back, and they stay as they were a moment ago. Absolute chaos here for the 5th round of the Case King Pro Series. And in terms of what happened to Tobias Grunewald, a stop-and-go 30-second penalty, probably out of all the carnage and drama we've seen on track, one of the least chaotic moments, certainly a surprising one. But when you see the action that's taking place with these cars, wheel to wheel, at so many corners, some of the longest trains of fights that we have ever had in the Pro Series, in terms of losing a position, probably one of the simplest ways but most frustrating ways to do it. So after leading the race from the start, and looking like he could control it to the end, all came undone. As meanwhile, look at this. Here's Del Fanta. He's moving extremely quickly. Florian Duakov is not leading by an awful lot amount. There you go. Just saw him in frame there. 8 minutes left on the clock, excuse me. There's a few laps left to go here. And Philipp Mannar might be the thing that saves Florian Duakov from a late charge from the Italian, who does look like, with the bit between his teeth, he is the fastest of the top three in the closing stages of this race, because that Mustang, we've seen time and time again how good it is in a straight line, and this is another example, as there's the opportunity, there's contact, oh God, again! Marina almost sent Michael Frey around. Brave stuff there from the Porsche driver, and Timo Karppinen is immediately glued to the rear of these two. Michael Frey, that is a very, well, I was going to say a very calm man in the cockpit of that 992. I don't think he's calm at all, but he certainly gets a cool head, all things considered. And he might be relying on Karppinen sending one from downtown, but it's going to get very busy indeed. They're 1, they're 2, they're 3 wide. In towards turn 1, there's contact between these two again. Karppinen trying to go for the switchback, may get one. It's side by side with Noah Reader, not for the first time. The inside line, though, for the Mustang at turn 2. Will run the Bentley wide. Into 3 they will go. Can Karppinen get back to the inside? And the answer is no. So Frey lives to fight for another day in P10, and that is absolute drama between these guys, and the margins at the front are continuing to come down. A 53.9 from Florian Duakov. Those tyres are dropping off the face of the earth at the moment, and he's being reeled in at a rate of knots by Eric Del Fanta and Philipp Mannar, but the pace is definitely the way of this Honda in P3. He was 0.6 of a second up last time around, and he is stuck behind this Mustang. If he wants a chance at race victory, he needs to make his way past the number 8 car, but is not allowing himself the opportunity with such a limited amount of time left on the clock. And that Mustang, every single time that there's a place he could make a move, he just pulls away and makes it that bit harder. Same goes for this fight down here. Noah Reader, Karppinen, and Michael Frey squabbling away. You see, you'd look at that gap and you say, Frey, he should be fine by the time they get to the chicane. No. That Mustang, I will guarantee you, will be immediately on the gearbox of that Porsche on the way up, and will go with an onboard on Noah Reader here. So it was 0.5 of a second on exit. Now it's 0.4 of a second. It'll be 0.3 of a second in just a moment. Here we go. By the time we get to the braking zone, he's basically on the rear diffuser of that Porsche. And I think this car's a little bit more comfortable through a chicane as well. That's good drive from the Swiss driver as they head on down. A 54.2 from Florian. He is getting slower and slower. Philipp Mannar getting 0.4 of a second on him as well. Noah Reader with a big run out of final corner. Definitely an opportunity here to make an attack on the number 20 car. Michael Frey trying to fight with everything he's got. Karppinen watching and waiting for an opportunity which may prevail. Frey extremely deep on the brakes, maybe a little bit too deep for his own good. Can he have it covered? There's Timo Karppinen. You can see just to the end of your screen. Noah Reader, Karppinen out on the inside in towards turn number 3, and he may get the opportunity this time around. He'll have to take the outside for turn 4. He squeezes across the nose once again. Frey runs away and escapes. Karppinen runs off the track entirely, comes back on, bouncing on his way. Korekis has joined the fight as well, but now with the inside line in towards turn 5. Surely that gives the advantage to the Finnish driver, who with a little bit of a squeeze makes his way on through, and he goes deep in towards turn 6. Noah Reader comes on back through. Gaskell, Korekis scrapping away in this one as well, in towards Dunlop Curve. The gap between your top 3 closing down every single lap as well, and Noah Reader somehow does hold on. Korekis trying to do the same versus the Lamborghini of Sam Gaskell, and as they pressure in towards the Schumacher S's, they somehow stay as they were. Michael Frey opens up a gap of a second. Will that save him to the end of the lap? 1.2 seconds is the margin for Florian Duakov in the lead. But again, the pace, he's really struggling at the end of this race. But so is Philipp Mannar, and Philipp Mannar is holding up Eric Del Fanta, who just cannot find a way through on this Mustang. A bit of a reignition of pace from the number 7 car, the lead of the race, a 53.8 from Florian. maybe doing just enough to the end to hold on. Nicholas Huber holding on as it stands over George Boothby. These positions could be crucial by the time we get to the end of the championship. And apparently Team Carpenter actually allowed Noah Reader to go on through, so maybe felt there was a little bit too much rubbing and racing between one another through that sector, as he's still very much with an opportunity to go for those top 10 positions. It could go the way of any of these guys. Michael Frey has put on a pretty stellar defense so far in this race. I'm checking to see, is there any penalties for anybody? We've got a few. Valentin Barry, a 5-second penalty for him, a 15-second time penalty for number 19 car. That is further down the order, I believe. Can't quite work out who that is for. Number 27, that is Kolosov, with a 10-second time penalty for number 6 car. Has got a penalty as well. That doesn't seem to be... That is Jardier in P20. A mistake of sorts for him. Unusual for him to get a penalty. Number 33 car has got a time penalty as well. Not sure who that is for. And that is everything that I can see from my side. 2.5 minutes left to go on what has been an absolutely incredible race. It was Lucas Roder, thank you very much there for the help in the chat, as Carpenter once again ducking, diving, searching, hunting for an opportunity past this Mustang. But right now, unable, despite that tremendous pace that we've seen, unable to find a way through. Geoff Boothby as well again. This will be the penultimate lap for these drivers that they're just heading on to. Because there you see Florian Duakop just starting the penultimate lap now. Just a little bit too much time on the clock to bring it home to a close earlier. Eric Del Fanta running out of opportunities to take P2 and certainly take the race winners. Here's Boothby on the charge once more, but again, he just can't quite get alongside Nicholas Huben in the way that he wants to, and the Aston Martin manages to hold on to that position once again. Martin Lawrence with a 5-second time penalty as well further down the order. We'll see how it all plays out when we review the results post-race. What an absolutely incredible round it has been so far. Any of these positions going down to the final moments. No Reader trying to go for the move on Michael Frey. He's over-sent it, but can he still protect that? Whoa, and there's big contact. Big contact this time around between himself and Carpenter. And Carpenter does go through, and there's a second bit of contact there with Valentin Barry trying to come around the outside. Can he get the job done in towards turn 3? He'll have the inside for 4. And Noah Reader finally brings that battle to a close with the contact there. We'll see how the stewards review that one. But it did look like a bit of just, I don't know, it looks a little bit like an unfortunate heavy bit of contact into the apex, but I'm sure Ida will be frustrated there, and it's a second between Carpenter and Michael Frey. If Carpenter can get there, he definitely has a chance to get back into the top 10 after being all the way down in 30th place. But that's a chunk of time to try to find. As meanwhile, Florian Duakop, after inheriting the lead from Gronewald for that mistake, he has to just make his way through the chicane 2 more times. He's got a 2.3 second gap now and has to keep it all together for one final lap. He's only won a race in the Case King Pro Series once, multiple seasons ago now. It's been a while since we've seen him at the top step of the podium, and we'll have to see if he can just keep it together one last time to make it a second time. Eric Del Fanta, the best opportunity he's had so far, surely has to go for broke this time around, trying to go around the outside. Philip Millar overcooking it in towards turn 1. The comeback for Eric Del Fanta, who's trying to make it away the long way around. The Mustang still on the inside. They're still side by side. Incredible action here in the fight for P2. In towards turn 3 they go. There's barely a piece of paper that you can fit between the pair of them, but Del Fanta, I think, might have done it on the exit of 4. He has, but it won't be job done because that Mustang is an absolute beast in a straight line, and it could even go for an opportunity here, let alone on the way towards the chicane. But he's got to be patient. There's a yellow flag further down the order for someone. I think it's Kolosov that had a moment losing places. They all run on down in towards turn 1. Dropping out there, Lucas Roder deep under brakes, may lose 1, even 2 positions in towards turn 3. As he's got the inside line, he reclaims that inside line, sweeping around the outside. Kolosov gets the job done and moves his way up. Valentin Barrier trying to apply the pressure on the final lap of the race onto the back of Sam Gaskell. Pranav, I'm sure, watching with a great deal of anticipation. His boys have certainly been in the thick of the action for this evening. But they stay as they were for the time being. There's Thibaut Carpenter. He is there. He certainly has an opportunity into the final chicane because he has an absolutely thunderous amount of straight line speed. But Florian Ducop, he just has to make his way through the chicane one more time. He inherited the lead, but he kept his cool in the second stint as he rounds his way through the final corner. Every single time he's been in contention for a race win, he's done it with drama at the end, but this time it's calm, controlled, and collected. And for the first time since Season 8 of Mount Panorama, Florian Ducop wins in the Case King Pro Series. Del Fanta takes P2 ahead of Philip Menard. And on the last lap of the race, we'll check back in on this action. Huben, I think, has held on to P4. Carpenter, can he get up into the top 10 after dropping down to P30? It's a very, very late-breaking maneuver. He runs off into the gravel. Correct is trying to go around the outside. He sweeps around the outside the final corner, but he surely will be outrun to the line by the Bentley. Michael Frey, with a brilliant defense, will take P10. Carpenter takes 11th. Correct is pushed all the way to the line by the Visceral Racing Lamborghini. Holds on. And the fight further down the order still continue. Lucas Roda unable to reclaim that over Kolosov. Danil Panfiorov in the exit of the last turn, trying to do something about Samuel Foss just in front to the line. They will look to go, but it is Florian Ducop. For the first time, it's been 7 seasons since we have seen this man rise to the top step of the podium. The last time he did it in fashion and style in an exceptionally memorable way over the mountain, one of the trickiest circuits. He gave us drama on the final lap of the race as he was being hunted down after that moment through Skyline. But this time around, he stayed in the thick of the action all the way through the first stint. He was applying the pressure to Tobias Gronewald, and I would have loved to have seen how that duel would have gone in the end stage of the race. But after Gronewald made that mistake, Florian did not look back. He didn't ask a second time for the invitation to take a race win once again, and he's done it in fantastic style. And for the driver that's been on pole position twice in the last few races, once at the end of last season at the Nordercypher, again at the beginning of this season at Watkins Glen. This time around, he manages to pull it all together and take a race win. An absolutely exceptional drive from him, and one that I'm sure he will be absolutely delighted about, as that brings round number 5 to a close. What a fantastic evening of action we have been treated to once again. We had our thrills and spills both on circuit and in the comms box as well. But we managed to survive until the end. We managed to witness all of those incredible fights, and what a show it was up and down the order from everybody. And this just, again, it continues to feed in to what is just this incredible championship that is getting busier and busier every single time that we go racing. And I cannot wait to see how this progresses. We're only at round 5, remember. We're approaching the halfway point of the season, where, again, good points have been scored from the likes of George Boothby, who has constantly been in a position to contend for this championship for the last few seasons. He's leading the championship right now in terms of overall tally, with the likes of Del Fanta, Korekas, very close behind him in terms of overall points. So those guys are keeping themselves in the mix, and today certainly has helped keep those fights alive. An incredible evening of action from everybody there. But we will look to bring in our drivers for interview. We've got the first one of our podium finishers in the server waiting there. And we've had the second as well, so we'll get these guys in, have a word with them, and see exactly what it was like from their sides of that incredible race, as we will look to bring in the man that finished P3 after that chaotic and crazy race at the Nürburgring. Philip Menard, an incredible battle to the end between yourself and Del Fanta for the last of the podium positions, that P2 spot. Unfortunately for you, Eric Del Fanta, he just had that little bit more pace in the closing stages and got the better of you, but still an incredible result to get P3. How are you feeling after that one?
Yeah, thanks. I'm pretty knackered. I'm still kind of recovering from food poisoning, so that was a bit of a difficult race, but nonetheless, I mean, I really enjoyed it. And yeah, like you said, the last stint was quite intense. I'm actually sweating right now again for the first time in a while, so yeah.
I'm somehow not surprised. I think Eric Del Fanta was certainly filling up your mirrors for a while, and the consolation for the I'm trying to find the words. I did have a word that came to mind, but I can't think of it. I'm sorry that you're not feeling at your best at the moment. I do wish you a speedy recovery in terms of that. But with that as well, you have to be I think very proud of not only contesting in that podium fight in such an extraordinary way, but still very much being the absolute benchmark in the Mustang for the evening, and and was in the fight for P2 all the way to the end. What do you think it was about the Honda that gave Eric that last bit of advantage that allowed him to make his way past you in the closing stages?
I think he did a insane overcut. I think he boxed at like 30 minutes or 29 minutes, and I think me and Flo boxed at like 35 minutes, 34 minutes. So he had a significant tire advantage, as you could see in the final like 10 or 15 laps. I'll be honest, I was giving him my all. Like that was my utmost limit. I could not push the car harder than that in the last few laps. I think the Honda have that slight advantage in the middle of the stint, and the Ford really struggles in the last like 6 or 7 laps. So yeah, but props to Eric for that last stint. The pace was insane. So yeah, I have nothing else to say about that.
I think, an incredible duel between you both, and this fantastic exchange that we saw back and forth in terms of pace of each cars. But still very much doing yourself proud this evening, Philip, and getting a podium position, because in the end, in terms of the championship fights, it will be that consistency and staying in those top groups that certainly matters come the end of the season. For round number 6, we'll be heading to a very different circuit, the Red Bull Ring, for next week. 90 minutes there, of course, as well. Quite a circuit where we've got some pretty long flat out sections, which may favour that rather brutal straight line speed and torque that the Mustang has. Are you feeling confident you can be contending up for the race win once again for that one?
I'm hoping so. I mean, I was there for the base, but I'm pretty comfortable with Red Bull Ring. I mean, I've lapped that track to death in basically every sim. And it's such a basic track, and like you said, there's a lot of straights, so that's definitely our trump card in the Ford for that race and for the whole calendar, to be honest. So that's one advantage, I guess, against the Honda, which is kind of a parachute in clean air. So yeah.
It's the contrast between cars always gives us some really interesting action on the circuit. So absolutely opportunities on the horizon once again, and so much to look forward to. Philip, pleasure to talk to you. Take a well-earned and deserved rest after that crazy race. A big congratulations on the podium finish. Get well soon, and we look forward to seeing how you get on next week at the Red Bull Ring.
Thanks. Cheers.
Cheers, Philip. Take care. Fantastic there to talk to a man that finished at P3 after that fantastic duel with Eric Del Fanta to the end. Eric, the overcut strategy gave you such a huge pace advantage in that second stint, to a point where you were starting to become a threat for the race win as well. I'm sure Florian was keeping an eye on your times, but that Mustang just a little bit difficult to pass over some of those laps, but you got the job done for P2 in the end. So still a fantastic result, very important for the championship indeed. How are you feeling after that one, buddy?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. Yeah, I'm happy. I think I mistake a bit the quali. I had a 10th, so a bit happy, but I know I can win this race. But I have to say congrats to Florian and Philip also for the fantastic pace. Unfortunately, I lost a bit in the first stint, in the first laps, especially with a bit of battles.
It was there was certainly some busy moments. I'd be interested to get your perspective with that incident with Teemu on the opening lap. It was quite a dramatic moment, certainly from the outside. I'm sure it had your heart in your mouth as well on the run in towards the Dunlop hairpin. How difficult was it to keep the car under control and then sort of kind of keep your head together after that moment, and then just try to push on from that point on to fight with those at the front of the pack?
For the incident, I think he misjudged a bit the space because he crossed my line and we touched on the straight basically. So I think it was a little miscalculation by him. But yeah, the first laps was very difficult for me because I was struggling a bit with the tires. But in the second stint, I was a lot faster, and I have to. I don't know why, but overall, I'm happy for the result.
Absolutely, yeah.
Points.
Sometimes, yeah, the mystery of how the tires can come and go in your favour, and yeah, certainly, change the dynamic as the race plays on. A fantastic result for you in that Honda to get another podium finish of the season and help with your championship campaign. We're heading over to Austria next week, so the Red Bull Ring for that one, and I mean, I don't know about you, but I get the impression it could be another strong circuit for you. You have some pretty healthy, flat-out sections there, but also, some tight corners and areas where you're going to need agility and some good cornering capability on board the car, which I think the Honda is seemingly looking like it's delivering at this point. How's your thoughts heading into that one in terms of, do you think you can fight for the win once again?
I don't know, honestly. I like the track, and I think it's pretty good also for the car because, especially turn 3, there is a lot of traction, and Honda is very strong in that point. So we will see next week. Also, it could rain, so the car is very fast on the rain. So
this is very true as well. So, yeah, certainly an abundance of different opportunities that can see you once again in the fight. Eric, a huge congratulations for that well-deserved podium today and that P2 finish, and look forward to seeing how you get on next week at the Red Bull Ring.
Thank you very much. Have a nice evening.
Thanks a lot, Eric. Take care. Great stuff to talk to the man that finished P2. But whilst those two drivers that we may have spoken to, I'm sure, are feeling pretty happy as it stands at the moment, I think there might be one man that's just a little bit happier than the pair of them. Florian Duerkop. For the first time in 7 seasons, you have risen to the top step of the podium once again, and you did it in style this evening at the Nürburgring. You've shown those glimmers of pace in recent races. The beginning of the season, the end of last season, the pole positions are coming, but the conversion to the race wasn't quite there. This time around, you brought it together, you brought it home, and you took race victory. How are you feeling after that incredible performance, buddy?
Oh, it's hard to describe, my man. Maybe I did it just to hear your voice, but it felt good, Coming into this round, I was like, okay, let's try something different, setup-wise, different driving-wise, and it seemed okay-ish when I tried it on the practice server, and I thought, yeah, okay, this is horrendous. They are gonna pass me like left, right, and center. They are doing 52 4s, 52 5s, 52 3s, and I was like, okay, this can't be serious, because I only did like 53.0 and something like that. And after like the quali, where I kind of bottled my last lap, still held it together for P2, I thought, okay, this could be going in the right direction if I get Grunewald maybe into T1, or maybe with a cheeky move because he doesn't know the car as well as I do. Maybe I could get him, but as you can see, Grunewald's like playing against the Champions League football player. It's pretty difficult to overtake him, and if he wouldn't have gotten the SG30, he would have driven away like, I don't know, 10-15 seconds, because my pace was just, the curve was going down hard. And yeah, holding it together in the end was quite a good feeling, because every time I went through that chicane in the last 5 minutes, I was like, oh no, hold it, don't do a Bathurst, hold it.
I could absolutely imagine, yeah, the tension and the. I'm sure that every lap that went by, you were gripping that steering wheel probably harder and harder, trying to get the car to the finish line. But to be honest, obviously he drove a very good race. He was very good in qualifying, but it goes to show the level by which all of you guys are pushing yourselves to the limit. Because the fact that the fact that he pushed that hard on the pit entry to try to make sure that the undercut that yourself and Philip were putting in, wasn't going to lose him track position, you had him on the ropes. So, maybe, that second stint, who knows where that pace would have been, because, we saw that dynamic between yourself and Eric, for example, who seemed very strong in that end phase of the race. So, as far as kind of we could see in the comms box, it looked like it was game on in that second stint. And whilst he did that mistake and it brought you into the lead, you still controlled it beautifully to the end. And to finish first you have to finish, and you're stuck by that rule for this round indeed. And I'm so curious to kind of I don't know what your situation was like with track limit warnings and things like that, but that chicane, obviously it can sometimes be a real lottery. How was it in the Honda? Was it a fairly calm through there, or was it kind of like you were on a bucking bronco every time you went from one apex to the next through there?
To be fair, it was quite a good feeling. In some other cars, you have like this crazy ground collision, or sometimes random ground collision, like in the 296. And I don't know, it just felt good through there, just like plain sailing. Sometimes I overstepped it a little bit going in, but that's like braking too late or taking a bit too much entry speed. As you could see in the first few laps, I always pushed harder into the chicane instead of out of the chicane against Gronewald. But it felt good, and track limits weren't an issue because, Nürburgring has this, I would say, kind of weird bug where you kind of don't get track limits somehow. Kunos, if you hear this, please fix. And fix Red Bulling as well.
I feel like there's someone just scrabbling away on a notepad in the background.
Yeah, but it, to be fair, the car felt alright the whole race. It was like, and the Honda is most of the time very aggressive with the rear tires in terms of like it's shredding it to bits, but this time it felt just fine. Like they were wearing, but not that much that you could say, okay, maybe this will be a problem in like the next 10 minutes or so. It was more like my concentration going away, and Eric and Philip doing a very, very good stint in the end, instead of the car being a handful to drive in the end.
Absolutely, yeah. It seemed like the get-go from qualifying on was that you found yourself dialed in to that car, and like I say, there's been these glimmers of you being so at one with that Honda in recent races, but today it all came together for your second victory in the Case King Pro Series, and a beautiful drive that you put together here tonight. I'm sure that you'll be enjoying this evening and relishing in the moments of how the Nürburgring has treated you for tonight. But I do just want to cast your mind just a little bit further forward into the future. That on the back of this momentum, heading over to the Red Bull Ring for the 6th round of the Pro Series. Also a 90-minute race as well. Some potential mixed conditions, because the Honda typically performing quite well in the wet is in that one. Do we think this could be an opportunity for two on the bounce, or how are we feeling heading over into the Red Bull Ring for next week?
I would say it's kind of mixed, because the Honda is very, very good in the rain, but Red Bull Ring has these two left-hand corners, and I don't know why, but in the second of them, the Honda wants to decide, okay, you're turning left, let's turn even more left, and it just becomes like a Beyblade into that corner. But overall, if you could fix that and say that isn't an issue, I would say it could be a possibility that the Hondas will be back again, because we have pretty decent straight line speed on there, compared to the likes of the Ford, which we know has very good top speed. And against I think the Porsche was also very good there. So I would say it could happen, but if I would have to place bets, then I would say probably if Luke takes part, Luke would take the victory next time out and not a Honda.
Interesting stuff indeed. We'll have to see how it all plays out. Yeah, so perhaps maybe if you can tame the tricky back end of the Honda through that middle sector, that could be the difference maker. We will have to wait and see. But for tonight, you can enjoy, sit back, relax for the first time in about the last 2 hours, Florian, and relish in the glory of that race-winning drive that you have put together. Fantastic stuff from you. Pleasure to talk to you once again in the comms box, and we look forward to seeing how you get on next week for 6 rounds of the season.
Yeah, let's see us in the next week on the podium again.
Sounds like a plan, Florian.
Cheers.
Take care, Florian. Great stuff to talk to the man that after a bit of a back and forth time in the lead or in the race this evening, Grunewald looking like he was the man to beat, and certainly in that first stint, I think Florian's kind of underselling his drive a little bit there. Grunewald was under pressure for a lot of that time. It was only a second or so gap. The undercut looked like, before Grunewald pitted, we don't see if he had any moments on that lap just before he took with the stop-go 30, but the gap was only a couple of tenths of a second. Florian was there. Florian was there with tyres that were warmed up, ready to go. I think it could have been interesting. Quite clearly, the pace of performance that Florian had made one of the best and fastest drivers on ACC crack under pressure, make that ever so small but crucial mistake, changing both his race and the rest of the podium finishers, and allowing Florian to rise to the top step of the podium for only the second time in his Case King Pro Series career, and for the first time in 7 seasons. It's been a long old wait for Florian, and a very happy man indeed, and well deserved too with all of that. What stories we have had for the last couple of weeks. Michael Moning taking that victory last week, the first North American to do so, and in emphatic fashion, and Florian Duakop taking a race win on home turf as well, just to make it that ever bit sweeter. An incredible evening of action with, in relative terms, quite minor shenanigans in the comms box, considering our recent form over past weeks. So we've all survived pretty well. Florian Duakop then ahead of Delfanza and Manar round out your podium, with Huben holding off Boothby to the end, with Moning, Ruggiero, Walsingham, Bernd Frey, Karppinen, Korekes, Gaskell, Ida, and Campanella running out your top 15. Karppinen just missing out on a top 10 finish after going all the way down to the edge of top 30 after that incident early on. Bischoff, Barrier, Lawrence, Gamble, Vassner, Steyer, Zerbin, Jardier, Proel, Schneckenberger, Prima, Schade, Kolosov, and Niter. See you way to the end of the top 30. And your final drivers in the finishing order: Morant, Panafilov, Roda, Makovsky, and Poznikov, your final finishers. With McLaren, I think actually did carry on to the end, but then Tobias Grunewald and Florence, the last of those on the field, and unfortunately DNFing from the race with their various incidents. But my goodness, the Nürburgring, it's a historical circuit for a reason. It delivers fantastic action every single time that we're going racing, and we shouldn't have expected anything different. You take some of the best drivers on the LFM platform within the world of ACC, competing at the highest levels, and you are going to get fireworks from start to finish, and we had that in abundance, and what an incredible pleasure we had watching the race this evening. Just immense. But for the 5th round of the Case King Pro Series in Season 15, that is it then for the evening. If you have enjoyed the crazy action that we have had here on the channel tonight, do consider giving the channel a follow. Stay in touch with all of the drama and championship shenanigans that we have coming up, when next week we'll be heading to the 6th round, the halfway point of the season at the Red Bull Ring. for 90 minutes of action. You can see how these guys get on there. With 90 minutes on the clock and mixed conditions on the horizon as well, who knows how that race may play out. I think we could have a stellar one there as well, so do look to be around for that. You can also catch up with all the action as well over on the YouTube channel. You can subscribe over there. Also, if you do fancy being a little bit extra generous and supporting all of those hidden heroes that make all of this action possible, you can also subscribe here on the Twitch channel as well. It does all very much help and is very kind of you indeed. And big thank you to all of those that support us here, both as followers and those that give us that little bit extra. It is all very much appreciated. But for tonight then, in terms of watching the action, that has been it. But if you want to have a look at what things are like behind the wheel, then needn't you fear. You can head over to lowfieldmotorsport.com website, get yourself a license, work your way up through the ranks, and you can be competing in championships like the Case King Pro Series for some fantastic prizes, of course, as well as the Daily Racing, Endurance Racing Duo Cup, all sorts of fun shenanigans over on ACC, GT3, and a few other bits and pieces. But if perhaps ACC isn't quite your cup of tea, you can also go over to Assetto Corsa 1 and get up to all sorts of good fun over there as well. Big variety of cars. Got single seaters, the F1 stuff heading on there at the moment, as well as a lot of other stuff that you can get involved in there. And if you fancy a little bit of voluntary off-roading and perhaps your collision with a tree or two, you can also join the WRC Club Championship as well and get stuck into all of that action. And if nothing else you'd fancy just being a part of this wonderful community, sticking in touch and up to date with all of the latest news, making some friends and being welcomed into everything good real racing and sim racing, and also join our Discord server as well. You'll be welcomed in with open arms and share all sorts of fun stuff, pictures of your cats, your dogs, your friends, whatever you like. And always a fun one to have you guys in there indeed, and grow what is an ever growing community. Just crazy numbers that we are looking at every single day. But after an immense evening of action, with Florian Duicot rising to the occasion today on home turf to take a second victory in his Pro Series career, we end this evening interested to see how it all plays out when we head over to Austria for next week at the Red Bull Ring for the 6th round of the season. Will it be a Honda on the top step of the podium again? Will we see another emphatic finish, seeing a new driver rise to P1? Who knows? One way or another, though, I think it's going to be a cracker, so do not miss it. Look forward to having as many of you there as possible for the halfway point of the season. But for tonight, then, everybody, thank you so much for watching, and it's goodbye.